You're listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 202. Today's podcast is brought to you by Elite Science. Unlock your dog's full potential with a unique competitive edge solution, 1-TDC. 1-tetradecanol complex is a patented blend of unique fatty acid oils designed to safely and effectively keep joints and muscles at their best to maximize performance and shorten recovery time. 1-TDC is the next generation of fatty acids and is used by many current and past national agility champions and world team members. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1-TDC special offer by purchasing online at bda1tdc.com. That's bda1tdc.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by hittedboard.com. Hittedboard.com has the innovative training tools you need for agility. Having problems with the dog walker A-frame? The Hitted Board can fix that. Your dog doesn't like tugging? They'll love the Tug It. Can't move your A-frame around by yourself? The Move It can. Go to hittedboard.com and use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hittedboard.com.
Today, we are pleased to welcome Carrie DeYoung back to the podcast. She is the Director of Agility for the American Kennel Club and has been for the past almost 8 years. And she's here to talk about the AKC Invitational, which takes place December 14th to 16th in Orlando, Florida. Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me back. It's been a while.
It has been, but we've got the Invitational coming up, and we thought this would be a great time to kind of look back at the Invitational. I couldn't believe that it's been 13 years. See, we should have done this 3 years ago on the 10-year anniversary if I'd had my ducks in a row and thought about it, but we'll just do lucky 13 instead. So give us a little bit of background, especially for some of our listeners that aren't familiar with the event, what this event is and how competitors are selected to attend the event.
The Invitational was originally designed to go with the Ikanuba AKC National Championship, and they were looking for some type of an agility showcase. So initially, the Agility National Championship was actually rolled into this event for the first couple of years. But as the National Championship continued to grow, we realized that we couldn't keep it tied to that because our space requirements were becoming greater. And we really wanted a way to showcase the variety of breeds that we have competing in AKC Agility. It's certainly one of the things that makes us unique. And so we came up with this breed showcase idea, and the top 5 dogs of each breed are invited to compete. Originally, it was straight top 5, whether they were regular or preferred level dogs. Some breeds, all the dogs are preferred in the top 5. Some breeds, when you get to 3, 4, and 5, they're preferred. Some breeds, the top 5, the top 50, are never going to be preferred. So a few years ago, we added one preferred dog space for any breeds that didn't have a preferred dog already competing. And again, it was just a way to continue to open up this showcase so when people come to this event, they can see all the breeds they're hoping to see.
And I'm glad you kind of gave us that history lesson because we lived through this. We were actually at the first Invitational with our Rottweiler, Sammy, and I'd kind of forgotten a lot of what you mentioned about the fact that the National Agility Championship was held together with that Ikanuba show. And for the diehard agility people, that's a breed show. So some people may not even follow that particular show, but that was the big breed show, and Nationals was held with it. And then, as you said, we moved Nationals away, and Invitational took that spot. And for people who are not familiar with the trial, when we talk about the top 5 dogs, it's based on Invitational points, which is a formula that's basically mock points plus 10 points for every double Q.
Correct. That's the same formula that we used for the end of the year to determine who our top dogs are for 2018, 2019. But this is on a different time period. This is from July 1st through June 30th of each time period for the upcoming Invitational.
And when the Invitational first happened, there were also multipliers for placements way back then, so that people could really rack up points by getting first or second in their class. And then those no longer exist. So now it's a lot more
points, right?
I think you got double for first place.
And then 1.5, I think, for second. And for those of you who don't know how the scoring system works, let's say course time is set at 65 seconds and you do 45 seconds, then you can get 20 points.
Right. It's the number of seconds under time.
Right. And then the same thing for jumpers. And then, as you mentioned, for every double Q, which is you qualify in jumpers and standard on the same day. So you get kind of a bonus for doing it, all in the same day.
Right. A little consistency bonus.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the preferred dogs. That's something that I had not noticed until I was looking at the premium for this year's event. So that was new to me.
I think we've been doing it about 5 years now. I didn't look up that time period, but I believe it's been about 5 years.
Another event that we always hear about in the same breath as the Invitational is the Junior Championship. It happens in the same venue the day before the Invitational. That's the Junior Championship. So where does that fit in here, and how does that event work?
Well, again, just like the Invitational was modeled after what was happening on the confirmation side, the junior event, both for agility and obedience, came into being because there is a junior showmanship competition, which is part of the Royal Canin event, which is now named the Royal Canin event. And we felt that we needed to showcase our juniors in agility and in obedience, so we added our junior competitions. The junior competition is open to all juniors, whether they compete in AKC or in other organizations' agility programs or 4-H. When we first started, we had one class that was designed more to mimic the Florida State 4-H criteria for agility, because we had a good amount of kids coming in through that program for this event that didn't have a lot of AKC experience or any AKC experience. So to allow the 4-H juniors or juniors that show in other organizations that we didn't have records on, we have a form that we call the competition ready form. And they need to have their trainer or their 4-H leader sign off that this dog is able to work off lead. And that was important to start to incorporate juniors from other areas, because there are so many different types of requirements in other junior programs. Over the years, this has become very popular, and we have changed the requirements starting last year. Now instead, we break up the dogs and handlers based on the handler's age. So those handlers that are under 14 compete together with their dogs in their dogs' jump heights, and those that are 14 or over the day of the event compete together. And it just gives us a chance to celebrate our juniors, to showcase them for a little bit. And then the winners of the combined junior scores in each jump height can actually win a spot into the Invitational. Again, when we first started this, we had no way to rank juniors, so we couldn't invite the top juniors to the event. So that was put into the program so that the top juniors had something else to aspire to, and they then would move into the Invitational event itself for the rest of the weekend.
I think it's a great chance to really do something for the juniors. And, they are the future of the sport. So we want to kind of cultivate their love for the sport and continue their journey in it. But let's get back to the Invitational. So we went to, I believe, the first 3 years of the Invitational with our Rottweiler, Sammy. So we lived through a little bit of the early growth. And I remember just in those first 3 years, it kind of reminds me a little bit about Westminster, that the first year, people were excited, but people didn't know exactly how it was going to go or how prestigious it would be or what the event would be like. And then I felt like the next couple of years, every year, it took more to get to be ranked number 5, even for a breed like Rottweiler. So at first it was like dead easy. And then, by year 3, you kind of had to plan it out and do a little bit more showing to get that invite. Over the past 13 years, what have you seen in terms of how this event has grown and changed over the years?
Well, it's certainly become a very popular event. When we first started this event, when it became the Invitational away from the National Championship, we had about 300 dogs and 2 rings. Now we have 700 dogs and 3 rings, honestly, we could play with some stuff and open this up and make it even larger if we had the space. We're limited by the space, unfortunately, at this event. But again, as you're noting, as people found out about it and they enjoyed the event, it's different than the nationals. You come there to celebrate your breed. And that's what people really enjoy about it. So as that became more and more popular of an idea, and they got to the event and realized that it was a lot of fun, it certainly has just hugely, grown in popularity, which means in some breeds, there's a lot of time and energy it takes to be able to get their dog to these events. And I know you have the numbers up on your website. Certainly when you look at the Golden Retrievers, the Border Collies, the Cavaliers, the Eskies, there's a lot of time that these handlers are spending out with their dogs. And, their decision for that year is they want to make a run for the nationals. It would be like perhaps on the conformation side, when you decide you want to have the number 1 Gordon setter for the year, that means you're out on the road that year working to get those rankings. And that's what people decide that they're going to do for the Invitational. In some breeds, it's much easier. Again, you look at your numbers and you can see there are quite a few breeds that you only need, 1 or 10 points to be able to make it. But again, the base concept of the Invitational is to showcase the breeds. And that's the way the system has worked to this point.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting show because it combines love of breed with love of agility. So I feel like agility people, the majority of agility competitors are pretty diehard agility competitors. You have a few people who kind of dabble in agility. Maybe they do enough agility to get one of those versatility titles, but the majority of agility people are first and foremost agility competitors. But
I don't know that I agree with that. I'm going to need to see some numbers on that, like different dogs with different titles, especially when you talk about AKC agility. Now, maybe if you look at USDAA agility, maybe you have a much lower percent of people involved in other sports, like obedience or dock diving. Even there, I think you're going to see a lot of cross-training in different dog sports. But as far as the AKC is concerned, and maybe Carrie knows the answer here, but I'm going to need to see some data behind that opinion of yours.
Percentage of dogs that compete in agility in a given year that also have titles in other things.
Well, but I think your overall point is really well taken, right? It is the perfect intersect. Right, it's an intersection between two kind of circles here. What do you call those things? Venn diagrams,
yeah,
right?
Venn diagram.
You got your breed people, you got your agility people, and here they intersect. You got people doing both. And I really like that Carrie has hammered home the point here that this started as a showcase. It remains a showcase today. Every once in a while, you get people who are very confused about the event. What is the Invitational? How is it different from the National Championship? Well, the National Championship, you're out there, you're trying to crown a national champion. And here you are not, right? It's an invitational. You have to be invited. And you can certainly be the winner of the event.
Correct.
But, people are going out there and occasionally you hear things, people say things like, well, this isn't even the best dog in that breed. And I'm always going to ask that person, what do you mean by best dog? Mm-hmm. How do we determine who the best agility dog is? And this is an age-old question that doesn't really apply just to the Invitational or just the AKC. Is the best agility dog the most consistent one with the highest qualifying rate? Is it the fastest one on average? Right? Is it the fastest one at a particular event? You can be the fastest one in the preliminary rounds, winning all 3 rounds, and then fault in the final. Were you the best dog that weekend?
And the answer is that it depends on the rules. It depends on the structure of the question when you say who's the best. And so you go into an event knowing what that event is structured to do. And when you enter, you accept that. And we've had that conversation around Westminster as well. Gets a lot of that same type of criticism, I guess. But as an attendee, I think the camaraderie is amazing. That good-natured competition between people of the same breed, the celebration of your breed or your group. We definitely felt that when we were there with our Rottweiler, and it just has a very fun, celebratory feel to it.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'd say the other nice thing is you're talking about we consider it a celebration of agility and a celebration of all of our breeds. And there are different levels of competition actually happening there too, because we offer the breed medallions. Some people come in knowing they're not going to make the finals, but they're hoping to be the number one Rottweiler that year at the Invitational. So that's what they're running for. Others have come in and they're just excited to be there. They've got a breed that perhaps isn't as popular, and they are thrilled to be there so the public can see their breed doing agility. So everyone comes in with their own goals.
And I think that I have actually heard you say this, Carrie, that you have had people from other countries that witnessed this event that is very unique in the agility world, that were completely surprised and excited by the number of different breeds that they saw competing in agility. So what has been your experience talking to people from other countries, either the judges, or I'm sure that you rub elbows with other organization leaders, throughout the world and things like that?
Absolutely. That is definitely the feedback we've received. When we've had judges from other countries come and judge the Invitational, they're fascinated. They don't get to see a lot of Yorkshire Terriers running or Scottish Deerhounds or Greyhounds. We have the whole variety here, which makes AKC Agility, but unique in the agility world. Because again, from the beginning, we are a breed organization before we're an agility organization. And that's always a tough line. But this event gives us a chance to celebrate both of those. And again, the judges or the leaders that have come in from other countries, sometimes from the confirmation side, they come over and I'll recognize them and they stop and they want to know what's going on because, they're seeing breeds that they wouldn't see at home.
Yeah, I think in agility for the last couple of years, there's been a lot of, grass is greener on the other side type mentality where a lot of people kind of want whatever's going on in Europe, or at least you hear a lot about that. You see a lot about that on social media, but it works the other way as well. I get a lot of feedback from people in Europe, seminar presenters in particular, when they come here to the United States, and especially people who have had the opportunity to, watch Westminster, go to the Invitational, judge at the Invitational, and they all mentioned the breed diversity, and they mark it as a good thing. Something that they take back and they talk to other people at home and they say, hey, well, maybe we can do something like this. And the other one being that people aren't aware of is jump heights, right? So the variety of jump heights over here,
absolutely.
I think is very, that's a thing.
You've seen the changes internationally. The jump heights are changing internationally.
Right.
I think that is due to people coming, whether it's to the U.S. or some of the other countries where the jump heights are different than what had been seen, particularly in Europe. And they go back and they understand now why they're not seeing certain people coming to their events. And they want to open it up more. We all love our sport. We want to do everything we can to get other people to come in and play this game. And I think there are positive changes that go back and forth around the world as we get a chance to see how other organizations have events.
And when we talk about breed diversity, we just put out a post with some of the numbers from the event, and by rough calculations, it looked like there were about 169 breeds that could be invited, meaning a dog got a point somewhere. And that was just actually looking at the regular class because I was a little lazy, I guess. And as you mentioned, there are breeds where every single dog competing in agility is going to be in preferred. So that's a rough number, 169, but that leaves over 100 breeds that that there is no member of that breed competing in agility. And so I found that to be an interesting fact, that there are still breeds where if they wanted to just dabble in agility, if they wanted to check it out, of course, they would have to get all the way to masters, but then they could go showcase at this event.
Well, I have to tell you, your number sent me running this morning, Sarah, so I appreciate the heads up. I actually went to our registration department because honestly, I've lost track of how many breeds we have. And so what I found was we have 192 regular AKC breeds, fully recognized.
Okay.
We have 78 what we call FSS breeds. And those are breeds that either are FCI breeds that are not fully recognized by the AKC, or they're a breed that's recognized by their own country, such as the Lancashire Heeler, recognized in England, but not recognized by the American Kennel Club. So it's a way they can register their dogs and then track them once they're here in the U.S. And so I was concerned there were 100 new breeds I didn't know about until we found out the 78 of them were FSS.
Oh, now, so they are not invited to the Invitational?
No, actually they are. So your count is actually accurate. I wasn't surprised. You're always very good with your numbers. But I had to go figure out where all those extra breeds came from. And the FSS breeds are eligible to compete in the all-companion event. So whether it's agility, obedience, rally, tracking, they can compete in all of them. So we do have some of those breeds mixed into those 169 that you noted.
Right. And when I look at the breeds, and several years ago, I put together an article where I kind of jokingly said, if you want to go to the Invitational and, you don't want to get all of the points for your Rottweiler, well, maybe you should try a Beauceron, right? It's really similar to a Rottweiler and it only takes 1 point. And there's like a Boykin Spaniel, which practically looks like a working Cocker Spaniel and is very rare. So I think that there are some up and coming breeds in there, Kelpies, where people are going to start figuring out that these dogs are fit for agility. They're fast, they're driven, they're smart, and they're rare.
Well, one of the breeds that's popular abroad is, and I know I'm going to say it wrong, so I apologize to this breed already, were the Cooker Huns.
Okay. I think we've seen a couple of those.
They're becoming more popular in the U.S., but when you travel abroad, particularly to Europe, you'll see more of them competing over there than we have here currently. But we're beginning to see their numbers start to come up in the agility world. They're very, very good agility dogs. They're a nice medium size, and they've become, popular on the agility side.
One thing I wanted to talk about is the addition of mixed breeds. And I know it was a big deal when it first came out. The American Kennel Club has to strike a balance. You are for the purebred dog, but at the same time, you're also for, I would argue that you're for all dogs.
Correct.
And when you have situations like, we had a podcast about the two big FCI events, the European Open and the Agility World Championship. And one of the things we pointed out was at the European Open, mixed breeds can compete. Mm-hmm. And at the Agility World Championship, they cannot. Right. And so it always begs the question, are there dogs who could medal at the Agility World Championship, but are simply not eligible? And the answer is yes. And if they're not eligible to be at that event, then it takes a little something away from that event, in the opinion of many people, myself included. And at one time, the AKC was like that, but that's not the case anymore. Right. And you have mixed breeds, all Americans competing at all of the major AKC agility events, including the Invitational and including Westminster and
including the National Agility Championship.
And of course, the National Agility Championship. Do you remember off the top of your head how many years ago that mixed breeds first started competing at the Invitational? Because I no longer remember.
We added them the first year that they became eligible. Once they had enough eligibility where they could have picked up enough points to be at the Invitational, we didn't bring them in mid-year. We brought them in at the beginning of the year where they had a full 12 months to gather their points. And I don't remember. It would be about a year after mixed breeds became part of the AKC. And I know I should know that date, but I don't off the top of my head.
And mixed breeds are actually pretty interesting because they are they may be the only breed that spans every single height class. Poodles might.
Yeah, I was just going to say the poodle people would argue that. Yes, they also span all the heights.
Right, but there are very few other dogs, and I can't think of any other than poodles, that has that much diversity in height. Obviously, because there's actually no genetic commonality between all American dogs. So it makes it is a little bit different in terms of picking your top 5 because there is no notion of height when you are picking the dogs.
Correct. Yeah, it's done completely by, mixed breed. They're looked at as a single breed, regardless of the height that they're competing at.
Right.
And one of the things I wanted to talk about, knowing that we were going to have you here at our mercy, answering our questions, was about course design at this event. And of course, course design is a big topic of conversation, not just...
What? I've never heard of it.
That's right. It's just really, really everybody's talking about it across all organizations all around the world right now. It's a really big deal. But let's zoom in and really focus on the Invitational. So can you tell us a little bit about what is going on behind the scenes as far as the judges that you're bringing in, the parameters you provide for them, trends that you're seeing, how much interaction do you have with the judges with respect to course design? Tell us what you can.
Sure. Well, the course design specifically, we know that we're designing for the whole breadth of the AKC breeds. So we know we're going to have the little guys that weigh just barely 3 pounds, and we know that we're going to have the large dogs, the greyhounds, the wolfhounds, the Danes, the Kuvas. I noticed that one of the things that Sarah had noted that it was in jumpers, we've only had 2 tunnels over the last 6 years in 12 courses, and that was specifically jumpers. That's because we're looking for those large breeds. While those dogs run extremely well, we know how much time bleeds off each time they go into a tunnel. They come to this event and they want to be as competitive as they can be. So we try to design the courses so there's a little something for each breed that works well for them. It's a tall order, absolutely a tall order. Sometimes we hit the mark like any course design, sometimes we miss it. But we're trying to design courses that work well for all the breeds that are there. That's our final goal with it. And then when we look at them too, we do try to balance them out to make sure, again, that we've got a variety of challenges, a variety of equipment. And again, the tunnels is certainly probably one of the biggest things that you see where they're going to show up in standard, but they're probably not going to show up in jumpers. Your statistics play out. That's the biggest challenge for the course designers and for the course reviewers is to design courses that work across such a broad, group of dogs. When you're designing for a regular weekend trial, in the back of your head that you could have a Dane, you could have a Greyhound, you try to keep that in mind. But here, for sure you're going to have the giant breeds. For sure you're going to have the small dogs. And that's what we have to look at when we're designing the courses.
Yeah, I think that is super interesting. It's one thing for someone to say with their border collie who's 20 inches at the shoulder, I would like a more European style course with 3 tunnels that we take 4 or 5 different times, not really thinking or considering the handler who has a very, very good agility dog, maybe almost as fast as that border collie, who is 25 inches at the shoulder and has to stoop down into that tunnel. And every time they hit that tunnel, they're going to lose 5 to 8 tenths of a second to that same border collie for no other reason than the height difference there, right? It has nothing to do with their skill level, the handler's ability to plan and handle the course, obstacle training, right? Nothing to do with that. So I think just this conversation kind of shows you that with that diversity comes the organizational challenge of how do we get agility done for such a diverse group of dogs where you really are operating at the extremes at a very high level at a very big event where you want everyone to have kind of a fair opportunity, right, to really show what they can do, especially relative to each other.
Well, one of the things we've done the past 4 years, I believe it is we have brought in the 26-inch tunnels so that our large dogs have a little bit more space to get through them. The 26-inch tunnel is legal in AKC, has been for almost 5 years now. Actually, no, I take that back. Actually, here's an interesting little tidbit for you. The 26-inch tunnel has been legal for many, many, many years because we used to have that 2-inch variance. We still have it, but it would say 24 plus or minus 2 inches.
Right.
So you could have had a 26-inch tunnel many years back. But as manufacturers started to have those tunnels, then we incorporated them into the Invitational. We were fortunate there was a club in Florida, and I apologize to the club, I don't remember your name today, but they volunteered to bring their 26-inch tunnels up to us for the first couple of years. And we love being able to have that. And it's certainly, again, because of the type of event this is, those tunnels are fabulous.
Right. And I'll tell everyone who's listening, we are taping this podcast at the end of very long days, both for us and for Carrie. And that's why, maybe our memory is not quite as sharp as it would have been if we'd been taping this first thing in the morning.
It is nap time here in California.
There you go. There you go.
And we talked a little bit about the course design. We talked a lot about the course design, actually. But I've noticed in terms of judges, it sticks out in my head because you had Anthony Clark, and that's a name that we're very familiar with. I think the year that he judged the Invitational, he had just judged Crufts, I believe, that year. Or was it WAO? No, Crufts, right. And so then he comes over here and judges our Invitational. So have you had very many international judges, or was that kind of a one-time thing? And how do you pick your judging panel?
We'd had international judges since the inception of the event. There had always been one international judge. And again, there was a lot of things done with the Invitational to mirror what's happening on the confirmation side. And they used to have an international event as part of it and would bring over international judges. So we mimicked that with the judge, one international judge, and inviting different FCI countries to join us at this event. We, over the past year or 2 years, have phased that out with the international judge. We loved having them, but at the same time, we have so many judges, AKC judges, that we knew, would do this event well, would like to do the event, and we just decided we wanted to try to roll in more of our judges. We may at some point extend an invitation again, but right now we're using AKC judges.
And it's not like they could use their international judging course design skills because the course is so very different versus something like Westminster, where they're bringing in an international judge, but they're putting some pretty extreme international challenges in that course that you would not want to have at this kind of event for all the reasons that we were talking about earlier with the breeds at the extreme.
Correct. And that was one of the things that we had looked at. What they're known for, they didn't have the opportunity to be able to do their best as far as their course design. As far as their judging and working with the different international judges, we certainly enjoyed it. And again, we all learned a lot sharing back and forth.
Right, but that's what the internet's for.
Well, it's tough. So imagine you're an international judge, you're invited to the event, and then you have to learn a different organization's, signaling for faults and figure out what the rules are and remember certain things that you might let slip because that's just your default, especially the longer I think that you've been judging.
So you were phasing out the international judge. Were you also phasing out the invitations to the international competitors?
And not currently. We do still send an invitation out to all the FCI countries. Past few years, we tend to have about 5 or 6 different, countries that attend. And we'll continue to evaluate that. Some of them have been coming for quite a while, the exhibitors, and they really enjoy the opportunity. So we'll see going forward what we do with that.
So how does that work? Does each country get to send
whoever
one
they
team
want,
or as many teams as they want? Or
they can send up to 3 dogs. And they need to be in 3 different jump heights if they send them.
Okay.
All right. I do remember the year the Border Collie from Great Britain came over, Diesel. They had a fantastic final head-to-head with Jane Simmons-Moke and Susie.
Yeah, I remember the international dogs because, like that 6th place dog that doesn't get to go is like, I don't get to go, but this dog from England gets to take a spot.
And then we changed the regulations for the event. Currently, if a finalist place is taken by an international dog or the junior that won their way over, then we bring in an additional person. So let's say it is the Border Collie that comes in. We would have another Border Collie that would come in because the first one was the international dog. Same thing if the Border Collie coming in is being handled by the junior that won their way in, then there's another Border Collie that would come in. So no one loses their spot.
All right. So let's talk TV because this event was on Animal Planet for a number of years.
I think the year 3 is the year that I made the finals with Sammy Rankling there, and Animal Planet was there. So you had to do all the interviews before the finals because they didn't know who's going to win, and there wasn't going to be time to interview you after. So they kind of just interviewed a whole bunch of people. It was a very cool experience. Anytime you put agility on TV, it adds, I think, a little spice, little zest for the competitors, certainly, and it's great exposure for the sport. And now you've got this event going on live stream. So is there anything in the works for getting this on TV? And of course, the reason that I asked that is because of Westminster.
Right. What the AKC is doing currently in conjunction with Royal Canin, so of course, Royal Canin does the filming during the day of the event, and it is put up as soon as each group finishes. They put up our runs. But the finals this year will be also broadcast on AKC TV, and that is the new AKC channel out there. And I'm should be better versed in it than I am. You guys probably know it a lot better than I do as far as
they have a Roku channel.
Yeah.
So it's a channel that you can add on Roku. So it's basically a streaming channel.
Right.
Correct.
AKC.TV.
See, I have it so it just pops up on my computer, so I don't have to think about anything. When they go live with anything, it just pops up.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't have to think about it. And there's been some great programming, but that's the current plan for this event. Is it will become live. Actually, it has been live the last few years through the Ikanuba programming. So you could go to the AKC website or through the Ikanuba website and click into the finals and be able to watch those live.
Right. I think it's great to have the streaming and the finals on TV. I think for the enthusiasts, the reason that I would love to see it back on, I guess we would call it cable TV on a network, is because that's where I think you reach people who haven't discovered the sport yet, who just happen upon it when they're channel surfing or whatever. Whereas AKC TV and other, Ikanuba streaming or going to the website are all places where you would go watch it if you already knew about it and wanted to follow the event.
I would agree with that. And, again, as we keep looking at reaching out, if you look at the AKC Facebook page and its couple of million followers, they're beginning to use that more and more to get the word out there, because so many people on that page are just, people that love their dog. And so they log into the AKC Facebook page. So we know they're already dog lovers. Now we're going to see if we can convert them to do something different, something fun with their dog, come out and give it a try. So again, that gives us an avenue and a way to target the group that we know already, adores their dogs, and see if we can get them to do something else. But as far as anything beyond that, that's not something that I'm involved with. So, I have to wait till someone tells me what we're doing on those events.
Right. And it seems like Westminster has really jumped in and filled this spot of agility on cable TV with their multi-year deals with Fox, and kind of using that brand recognition of Westminster to get that out there. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the next 5 or even 10 years and where we go as a sport, because I could see so many different possibilities in the future. So I think when we look at this event, I think the number one criticism that people have is that it takes too many points to go to the event, that the showing required is too much. You have to show every single weekend. And I really think that for the vast majority of people attending this event, that is not true. I don't think it, I know it, because we just ran the numbers, and the vast majority of breeds do not require an extensive number of points to be ranked within their breed. So while there are particular breeds that become highly competitive, that is not the general sense of the invitational. So I think that that's kind of an important fact for people to have when they're looking at this event, especially for people who might think about going to the event and they have one of the less common breeds. You've got to look at the numbers to see what's required for your breed. It's always specific to the breed, because if you just decide that you're not going to go for it because of a perception that it takes too much showing, that could be absolutely false for your breed.
I think every year that we do a podcast or write an article about the Invitational, there's always a person or two who's surprised to find that out about their own breed. And then they make it a goal of theirs to reach that level, get those points, and then they have the opportunity to go if they want. And to address this issue, because I hear it a lot, I really do, as a criticism of the event. And it's an event that I enjoyed very much competing at and that I support. I'm just going to kind of sideline Carrie here and do this a little bit between you and me, because you did run the numbers. I know that everybody has an opinion, but I always like to listen to the opinions that have some facts behind them. And these numbers are facts. And so one thing that I want to know is, what are we talking about when we say, how many unique different dogs run at an AKC event at any time in a given year, approximately? What are we talking about? It's
about 22,000. And I'm pulling that from the invitational year. So we're talking about July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. And on top of that, just due to a limitation of the results, I only have the results of people who have a qualifying run. So if there are competitors out there that competed but never qualified, they're not included in that number.
Awesome. So
it's a low number.
Yeah. So that's 22,000 unique dogs, different dogs who have at least one clean run in the AKC over that period of 1 year.
That's right.
That's a lot of dogs. Now, Carrie mentioned earlier in the podcast, Carrie, you said how many dogs now are going to the Invitational approximately?
700.
700. Okay. So one of the things you hear as well, the existence of this event is pushing everybody in AKC Agility to handle a certain way, maybe run a certain way, spend more money to try and go to the event. The reality is when you only have 700 dogs attending the event, 700 is a very tiny fraction of 22,000. In fact, I put it in the calculator. It's 3.2%. On top of that, both you and Carrie mentioned earlier in the podcast, of those 700 dogs, approximately how many only need a single point to go to the event?
A lot of them.
A lot of them, right? So hundreds of them. Is that right? Hundreds of them?
Yes.
Yeah. So hundreds of them only need like one run and they get to go. Okay. So now we've narrowed that group of 700 even more. And when you look at the numbers, and we have a post that we'll link to where we showed exactly like what it took to get in, like what the fifth place, how many points the fifth place dog had, and kind of rank those required breeds. Right. So you can look at maybe like the top 10, 15, or 20 different breeds, right? And let's multiply that out. How many of those dogs, because you're really talking about 5 plus 1, because the 6th, 7th, 8th dog, if it's especially close, they are possibly going to adjust whether or not they go and show an extra day. They travel out of town, right? And go stay at a hotel in order to get in more opportunities to get more points. What I'm saying is, for each of those breeds, like you look at Border Collies, is 1,400. You think 1,400 Border Collie owners are changing their behaviors and going to extra shows because they want to go to the Invitational?
Only the top 10, maybe.
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 And even people in the top 10, they're like, I'm not really going for that. Or I live in California. It's in Florida again this year. I'm not going to make that trip anyway if I made it. So it's not going to affect their behavior. So how many dogs is it really affecting their behavior? Let's say it's 10 per breed, and we pick the top 20 breeds here. That's 200, right? 200 out of 22,000. I've got the calculator right here. My calculator is actually Sarah's phone, so let me clear. 200 divided by 22000, and that equals
less than 1%.
Is it that? Is it really less than 1%?
Yes.
0.09.
0.00.
0.009.
Then you multiply it by 100 to get
I guess
percentage.
If we round it up, it would be 1%.
That's right.
And this immediately destroys the argument that people give that the AKC created the event to get more money out of its participants. Right? It's factually and demonstrably false.
I think
it doesn't make sense at all.
And I really, really liked, Carrie put it so well at the beginning of the podcast that it's a showcase event, that is the point of the event. And I think we alluded to it, maybe even said it outright, but this is an event that for many breeds that are not as competitive across the board in the sport, that it is their moment to shine in agility. And when we look at all of the breeds that it is very hard to go to the Invitational because of the number of points, which, by the way, is determined not by AKC, but by the other competitors, right? And by kind of supply and demand there, right? Mm-hmm. So when we look at the breeds where it is very difficult to qualify to go to the Invitational, by definition, those points far exceed the requirements to go to nationals. So those dogs can definitely go compete in the nationals. And it's really a matter of choosing your battles, choosing what event is your premier event for yourself. We talked a lot about this in a podcast that it may be my single favorite podcast that we've ever done. It was called Choose Your Own Adventure. And the idea was that we are all responsible for choosing what is most important to us in the sport, and not only pursuing it, but understanding that we can't choose everything, that, we don't have the time and the ability to compete in every venue, every event, every international event, every local event, every national event. And so you pick the ones that are most important to you. And I thought Carrie's comparing it to making a run for the conformation. What was it, Carrie? That people will decide that they want to go for the.
You want to be the number one dog in your breed, your group, or number one dog all around for the year in conformation.
Right.
That's a conscious decision.
Right, or
so you have to campaign them, right? They call them campaigns.
That's exactly it.
You've talked about poker player of the year. Like when people decide this is the year I want to be ranked as the poker player of the year in this year, they have to put all other things, right? They have to put all other considerations aside and go to the events. But it's a choice that you make on that particular year. So I think that that's the best way to view the event and to have the people who are attending, let them celebrate their accomplishment in their breed. And for people that are not able to show the number that's required for their breed, choose other things that you want to go pursue.
Well, and I think one of the other interesting things that happens every year when the final rankings go up, or even once the invitations go in the mail, is we hear from people that are like, oh my goodness, I had no idea I was in the top 5.
Right.
It just came as part of what they were doing. I was looking at the numbers on Chihuahua while you were talking, and the amount of points for the Chihuahua was 1,100 for that 5th place dog. There are 23 Chihuahuas with points. And I have a friend that was just completely surprised when they got their invite. They had no idea their dog was even anywhere near the top 5. They just run, and that's what came of running this year.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these dogs.
I think it's the case.
So again, that directly contradicts the idea that their behavior, as far as what shows they enter, how they handle their runs, is being influenced by this event.
Right.
So.
But now, absolutely, if you have a Border Collie, you have a Golden, you have a Sheltie, you have a Poodle, you are probably not accidentally going to the Invitational.
Well, apparently, if you have an Esky.
Right. Yes. That was the big shocker. That was
the big surprise. Like, you had to be in the know. So either you have an American Eskimo dog, someone like your best friend or training partner has one, or you traveled with that person to the Invitational, as someone told us. So, you kind of got to be in the know, or even maybe compete against them, like on a weekend,
right,
week out kind of basis, that they're always there. But for them to, because Border Collies are number 2, right? And you needed 3,600 points to get in as the number 5 Border Collie. They're 1,424 Border Collies. You needed 4,500 points to get in as an American Eskimo dog. There are only 32 American Eskimo dogs picking up points. 32 versus 1,400, and the difference is like almost 1,000.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. I just wanted to put this out there. This was, I think, important to me, and certainly not something that Carrie brought to us, because, I do think this is a really good event. 2 other things to consider, and I think are definitely worth pointing out. If you are a faster dog, you're going to get more points. Okay, so these dogs in general tend to be very, very good at agility. And on top of that, they're very, very consistent, right? So these are not, when you are looking at these super competitive breeds, like the top 20 breeds, maybe 15, 20 breeds, you're not talking about 5 dogs that are barely getting in their course times.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, these guys are week in, week out in the ribbons.
Right.
Okay, and they are probably beating you, your friend, and your instructor. And so that's the kind of level that you're seeing here. And, I think that's reflected in what you see at the actual event.
Well, I'm sure you are looking forward to making the trip down to Orlando in 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
Most importantly, second round invitees, don't forget to get your entries in. You should have received your paper copies by now of your invitations. So make sure you get entered. It's a great event. We always enjoy it with all the different breeds. And again, as you mentioned very early on, the camaraderie, it just makes it for a fun weekend. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone in Orlando again.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Carrie.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Always fun.
Thank you. And I will put my 2 cents in and tell people to make sure to pick up after your dog at the event. Always appreciated at every event.
Absolutely.
And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Elite Science, hititboard.com, and also NTI Global. Accessories on the go. Compress that tunnel for storage or carrying with an NTI tunnel leash, now in stock. Add those tamer bags to your tunnel to keep it weighted and in place. Hold equipment steady with some anchor bags. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high-quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. They also offer a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Don't forget to check the in-stock selection. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com and use promo code MOVEIT2018NTI for 5% savings off today. Promo code good through September 30th, 2018. Happy training.
What did the little corn say to the mama corn? Where is popcorn?